Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to another vocal live hang. I nearly, I nearly said vocal analysis. Oh dear, as you probably guessed, I've been recently recording more vocal analyses, and you can check that out on the channel. But this is not one of those. This is our live hangout, which we do every Monday at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. A hangout that I look forward to every Monday. I really do. I look forward to catching up with you and seeing familiar names and characters in the live chat. But currently we've only got Linda in the live chat, which is a bit unusual that we've only got Linda. We'd normally have quite a few more. So if you're watching already, come on, join the conversation. Linda's been telling me, as you can see, Linda's been telling me about her coffee. In fact, she told me this morning in our preparatory email that she was looking forward to sitting down and having a nice cup of joe. And g'day, Dean. Dean's jumping in there, and Linda was telling me. And that she was going to, and so she's having a double shot flat white. Linda is in a place called Hobart, which is the capital city of Tasmania. You know how there's that sort of quite a large island off the south bottom right hand corner of Australia. That's called Tasmania. That's where Linda is, and it gets cold, and from here on in, all the way through winter, in the southern hemisphere, we're heading into our winter, our colder months. It's going to get chilly for Linda and all other Tasmanians. And so good to know that Linda is warming up with a good hot cup of coffee. Double shot, if you please. Good to see Janita and Victoria, who is there as well. Oh, Linda's telling me that it's decaf, though. Oh, come on, Linda. That's a cop-out. Decaf? Well, I don't know if we even get to say that you're having a coffee if that's the case. We'll let it pass this once. But, to claim that you're having a double shot decaf, like what's the point? Taste, I guess. You don't want weak coffee, do you? That's true. Heidelberg, Melbourne. If you're in Victoria, Janita, it will be getting very cold. I'm pretty excited that it's getting cold here in Australia, because in 5 weeks' time I will be skiing. And if you've been a part of the Voice Essentials community for any length of time, it is no secret to you that I am a passionate skier, a snow skier, and I live in the wrong part of the world to be a passionate skier, but there you go. It is what it is. Mr. Fomiati's jumping. It's good to see you all finally. I was wondering, where is everyone today? And so while you're all jumping in and making comments and saying hello, make sure you start leaving your questions, because today we're doing a Q&A. And as planned, and so it'll be a pretty short hangout if I don't have any questions to answer. Let me just quickly go through what's going to be happening over the next number of weeks. After today, we've got 4 more shows before I then go skiing for 1 week, and then I have a second week off. It's our mid-year break coming up, and so the show will be on hiatus for 2 weeks. So let me talk you through what we're doing over the next 4 weeks. So next week we were going to be having a special guest, a very, I think we could refer to Dr. Shannon Coates as a regular here on the show, but she's double booked herself, and she had a rather important appointment that our live hangout needed to take a back seat to. So she's going to join us again later in the year. Not that much later, but in fact, I didn't write the date down. But she's going to be joining us. She's not abandoning us altogether. So what I'm going to do is next week instead we're going to do a mini topic, and I'm going to talk about the business of singing. And we're going to talk through a number of key factors. For those of you who are thinking you would like to sort of explore, consider the idea of earning some coin from your singing, and there are a few of you that chime into the channel that either are thinking of doing that for the first time or already doing it. Maybe you're in the initial stages of doing that. I toured and toured an album all across my country here in Australia and New Zealand, and also have been a part of a corporate duo, and so I've done the business side of singing for a couple of decades, and so I've got some things that we can talk through next week, so that will be good. And as we always do, we'll do some Q&A as a part of that as well. The week after that, we'll do a complete Q&A like we're doing today. And then on the 10th of June, which for many of you in the Northern Hemisphere will be the 9th of June, we're having Heidi Moss come back and join us. She is amazing, and she's going to be talking. Remember last week we had Ken Bozeman? That actually, before I talk about Heidi, I got off last week's show and with Ken, and my head was spinning. Like, it was the area of acoustics and singing is such an evolving space, but Ken has been in the space and teaching, acoustics in singing, resonance for a long time, and he really is able to make what is a very complex area highly accessible. But even in the accessibility, you've got to be on, mentally. You've got to be right there. If you haven't seen the show from last week, please go and check it out. It's I promise you will learn so much. If you did see last week's show and you watched it, go and watch it again. I guarantee you will have missed something. I watched it again. I know Linda watched it again. It was so dense with information. It's go and have a watch. Now, during that show, Ken, I think he only referred to it once, but he certainly referred to, in working with his students, he referred to having them play with their voice. And someone who is quite the expert in the area of learning to sing and using playfulness as a part of that approach is Heidi Moss. And so I had already planned with Heidi that when we got her back onto the show in 3 weeks' time, that we would be talking about play. And so I'm really excited to be having Heidi come back on. Remember, if you want to watch, if you want to be notified about these live guests, make sure you subscribe, hit the white bell icon. I don't want you to miss any of these guests. We have the highest of the highest levels join us for these chats, and we are so privileged and so just benefited by their expertise, which they all give freely of their own time. It's wonderful. So Heidi will be in 3 weeks, and then we'll finish off the semester, the first half of the year with another Q&A. So, continue to write your questions down, and as they come up, and then make sure you do, just like Mr. Fomiati already has put in his question into the live chat right now, and then Linda grabs it, puts it into the document for me to have a watch of, and that's good. A couple of technical things. Once again today, when I went to start our live hangout, there's something that doesn't. It's not when I, how when I put the question up with your little little avatar icon in the corner so that we can read the question, and it's very fancy tech. That system is not working again today, so I'll just have to read the question, and so that's the first little thing. The second thing is, can you hear? Is the volume better? Now, we had some comments about last week's show. It was, and I listened back. It was quiet, and I've jumped in and I've done my best to squeeze more volume out of my system, and I'm hoping that as a result, overall, it's louder, that you can hear me better, and that it's, but that it's not Dean saying, yes, volume great today, excellent. I'm very pleased to hear that. So last week Linda's saying, but you were not as quiet as Ken. Yeah, and there is a certain, when I have a guest come on, it can be a bit challenging to get the levels right, but we do our best. If you could see what I've shown Linda before, if you could see the amount of buttons and what I'm looking at to do this show, you'd wonder why I haven't gone mad. Okay, let's get into some questions, because, well, that's why we're here, isn't it? Let's get into some questions after this. Questions and answers, that's what we are here for. So, again, this is the way we do it. You ask your questions and we'll answer them in chronological order as they come in. But if you absolutely must have your question answered and you don't want to risk it, not getting answered, then throw a super chat in, support the channel, and all of those proceeds go towards us. I've just seen Linda's comment to what I'm looking at the stuff. I wonder if I do this and do that. So I don't know whether you can see the buttons and anyway. And you probably can't see very well what's going there, but that's that. There's a bit going on. Okay. It's not quite the Starship Enterprise, but it's close. Mr. Fomiati is asking, I was going to say, yes, all of the proceeds from Super Chats just go back into running the channel. It's the gear and everything we need to do so is expensive, so we appreciate any contribution. And if you do put a Super Chat, we prioritize the answering to the best of my ability your question. Let's dive in. Mr. Fomiati. Question. The breathing exercises are very relaxing. Can you elaborate on breathing during singing in a live performance? And I think Mr. Fomiati, who has been in the past a private singing student of my own, and it's been really great actually to see Mr. Fomiati, and we're friends on Facebook, and I've continued to see him doing live performances. Mr. Fomiati, I saw your a recent post on Facebook, and a smile came across my face to see you out there doing what you love. In regards to the breathing exercises, which we find on Voice Essentials 1, and there are breath management activities in Voice Essentials 2, and certainly in Voice Essentials 3, so pretty much all throughout the Voice Essentials program, they are very relaxing, because the wonderful thing about developing breath is it interrupts your autonomic nervous system, and it slows everything down. And in particular, I'm thinking of exercise 12, where we breathe in for 8, we suspend for 8, and we exhale for 8, and we then slowly, as the track goes on, we slowly increase those counts to 10, 10, 10, 12, 12, 12, and so on. And Mr. Fomiati, you are not the first person to say that you find that quite relaxing. a lot of people report that that is the case, and it's because we get that wonderful slowing down of the heart rate and moving the air in a really purposeful manner, and so that's a really positive thing to be able to do. When it comes to then, I mean, the reason we do these in practice in our workshopping of the voice technically, between performances in non-performance settings, is because we want to be able to develop that automated process so that our body is learning how to breathe differently for singing. When it then comes to performance, ideally, we want your mental attention to be on performance. We don't really, I mean, there's a balance to what I'm about to say, but I'll say what I'm going to say, then I'll clarify. We don't really want you focused on your technique when you're on stage performing. There is a balance to that, and that is, it really is what's referred to as a state of metaxis, where you're holding both aspects, performance and technique, in a sense of harmony together. And so there are moments throughout live performance where you have to call upon your technique quite mindfully to bring about certain outcomes. And when it comes to breath, it's really important. In particular songs, you do need to choreograph, and I often refer to it as choreographing your breath, like a dancer choreographs their dance steps and their movement. Because in some songs, if you don't get a breath at particular points, there may not be another opportunity to appropriately take breath, further down the phrase. And so it can be disruptive and break your vocal line and, do all sorts of things. And so being mindful of your breath, you do have to be purposeful about that. As far as how relaxing it can be in your live performance, certainly you can use breath management, and the exercise 12 in Voice Essentials 1 is a good example of this, of being able to calm yourself prior to performance, prior to stepping on. Again, because that slows the heart rate down and causes the reduction of and interrupts the escalation of adrenaline and those sorts of heightening hormones and system drugs that are starting to activate in your body. And so it's a good thing to be able to do. And then, during performance, between songs, it can be hard during a song, but between songs, take a couple of deep breaths if the opportunity presents itself. If you're finding yourself becoming heightened in a moment, just take a moment. It can feel like forever, but really in reality, it's probably only going to be, 5 seconds or so. Your audience isn't going to get up and leave the room in 5 seconds. They'll wait, and they'd prefer you to be calm than be, running around like a chook with its head cut off, and be not right in the zone. So take a moment, and I think that's something that more experienced performers become more comfortable to do, is to just take their time in a performance setting and not feel rushed. Mr. Fomiati, I hope that helps. Got some good questions coming in here. Dean has asked, do I have a Patreon? Other YouTubers say 40 to 60% of super chats taken by YouTube. Patreon yeah. It's interesting. Patreon's been around for a long time, Dean, and 3 or 4 years ago, actually it would be further back than that, it'd be pre-COVID, I looked into Patreon. For those of you who don't know, Patreon is, I think many of you would, but for those of you who don't, Patreon is a space where really to access the creator's content, in my case, videos and learning materials, in one sense, it puts it behind a paywall, and that is you have to be a contributing member of Patreon to access certain content. And it's funny, I looked at that, and despite the fact that I am very consistent, Dean, in my uploading of material through YouTube, three videos a week. My work life is such that, because I'm actually a singing teacher first and a YouTube creator second. For those of you who only know me through YouTube, it may not appear like that, but for example, today I will see 5 singing students. Tomorrow I'll see 6. The next after that I see 5. Like I teach far more than I am on YouTube. And so the pressure of having a Patreon account, because here's the thing, I feel very strongly that if someone's going to give me and the channel money, I need to be able to give something in response to that. I don't feel comfortable with just sort of, collecting money and having it come through the coffers without giving anything in return. And so I decided at that time, and look, who knows what will happen in the future, but for now I've got no designs on making a Patreon account, and so hopefully that gives you some insight into, and the YouTube, like when we do a live, it's, the reason we don't require a super chat to answer your questions is because that's not what we're here to do. This is about providing the information freely, hopefully in a very generous way. But I am always grateful and thankful for those who are able to, and there are many people who are not able to, but for those who are, it's received gratefully and with a great sense of thanks. So, Dean, I hope that helps understand my approach. Here we go from Sebastian. Thanks for your question, Sebastian. I have a singing question. In fact, Sebastian, would you mind if I just have some water? We want to always, as we head into the cooler months, we certainly don't have a problem of sweating our hydration, our systemic hydration out, but the air is so much drier, and so keeping that superficial hydration of the mouth is a little bit harder because everything dries out so much. Sebastian has asked, I have a singing question. Sebastian, I'm glad to hear that because I don't answer any other questions. Mind you, this year, Linda and I decided at the end of last year that for the final show at the end of this year, which isn't until the very last Monday of November, but Linda convinced me, well, she didn't have to work hard to convince me. I thought it was a great idea. She suggested that we do a Ask Dr. Dan Anything show. So we're going to do that. And I'll reserve the right to only answer appropriate questions, but we're going to do that at the end of the year. For now, I am answering singing questions. Sebastian's asking, what would you suggest for helping for hypertension or complete jaw lock? Because it seems that my jaw can lock up at random times while I'm singing. Really interesting question. My first port of call, if that's the case, is to send you to a physiotherapist who specializes in head, neck, and jaw manipulation and massage and physiotherapy. Another person that might be helpful in this space could be your dentist, but they too are likely to send you to a physiotherapist who specializes, and I want to make this really clear, who specializes in jaw. Like, that's really important, because not every physio specializes in jaw. A lot of them, you know, are focused on backs and knees and ankles. So this is a more of a specialized area. And so I would be sending you to someone like that, because we want to find out what is contributing to that lockup, because it's likely there is something contributing to it. We do know that in our singing, what can happen is, as we reach up to you know, certain high notes, and we are working in the extremes of our range, our vocal range, that can, by virtue of our breath management, can cause tension through the jaw and the tongue. But it would have to, for that to be the cause, that would have to be so extreme to cause a lock jaw that probably your voice would be cutting out. So I really am given to, and you're saying it locks up at random times while you're singing. I really think it might be an idea for you to go and see a physio and find out what might be happening there, because it could be postural as well. And you know, it's important that I don't swim outside my lane, that I refer you to someone that's going to be really able to do work there. I work with people with neutral jaw, and I have them use their little pinky to create a spacer to help them get that sort of bio connection with what's happening in the tension of their jaw. But what you're experiencing is a little bit more extreme than what we normally would need to deal with to release the jaw and jaw tension in a voice studio. I hope that's helpful, Sebastian. Destiny Lord, who is a regular, aren't you, Destiny? I think you have become a regular. It's good to have you back. Just wanted to ask a question in relation to something you said before that they don't agree with. Oh, okay, here we go. Happy to have some conversation in regards to your statements about baritones and tenor. I think a baritone can definitely sing tenor notes and do it well. In my opinion, it's a mistake to say they can't. The timbre is what will be different. Upper range, from my understanding, is far more trainable than lower range. Destiny, we are going to need to agree to disagree on this. You have an anatomical limit. Now, if we can't agree, if you disagree that we have an anatomical limit, then that's where the discussion has to stop, because that is the grounds on which we establish this idea that that a baritone can't be a tenor, and a tenor can't be a baritone. And because my vocal folds are a certain length anatomically, they have a certain depth anatomically. My larynx is a particular size anatomically. For example, there's a difference. Let's talk about the difference between men and women. Biologically, the larynx in a man is will grow to about 2.5 times its prepubescent size, whereas for a woman it only grows to around about on average 1.7 its original size. And so even between our and so a woman can't suddenly become, outside of hormonal influence, and this is where we work with transgender singers. But what we're doing there is we're growing for a woman who wants to be able to express themselves as female, as male. They're taking hormones, which in testosterone, which in turn continues and furthers the growth of the larynx. And so we are changing the biology. And it's one of the challenges that transgender people who are wanting to express biological male who is wanting to transition to female is significantly harder, because you can't, once the larynx has grown and gone through and completed puberty, you can't shrink it. It's set. So that's sort of a specialized area. But we come back to this discussion between male, but just within the confines of male voice, and we've got our bass, baritone, and tenor. It's always interesting to me that we're always having a conversation around baritones feeling like they want to be able to sing as high as tenors. It's funny, there's never a discussion around tenors being able to sing like basses. And I think that's driven by the fact that there is this current popular culture that sort of says, I want to be able to sing as high as a tenor, because tenors are kind of, for a lot of people, where it's at. And I can tell you, as a person that's been teaching voice 29 years this year, 30 next year, that I've had to work with a lot of males, and for that matter female singers, who have found themselves wanting and trying to sing outside of what their biological limitations are, and it does not end well. It leads to heightened strain, and no matter how good we develop the technique, and by all means, when we develop technique, singers almost certainly discover more notes at both ends of their range. That is absolutely the case. But that does not change their biology, nor does it actually, say that any singing teacher is adding notes to their range and making the baritone a tenor. No, it simply means that the singing teacher has empowered, and the singer, through their own exploration and play, has explored and discovered ways of being able to sing notes that were already there. But they're still going to be in what we often refer to, the classical people refer to as the seconda voce. And so we have the prima voce, which is where, that part of the voice is often about an octave, sometimes a bit more, an octave and a half, where you feel like you could just sing in that space all day, every day, because it's just so comfortable. But then on either sides of that, we have our seconda voce, where we can access those notes, but to sing in that area, it's more work. It taxes us more. I'm kind of muddying the water there a bit, but the point being is that if you're a baritone, biologically, your vocal folds are going to be a certain length and have a certain plumpness. And it was interesting, Ken Bozeman, one of the world's most respected speakers on the area of acoustics and resonance, and in part we're talking about that as we have this conversation. He made that very same comment last week, unsolicited. He was making that comment in reference to something completely different, but the reality is that science tells us that that's the case. I hope, and Destiny's responding with, and this is good conversation, Destiny, a baritone won't be a tenor, but I've seen baritones hit tenor notes. Yes, that's true, and coming back to the comment you made earlier, that the resonance will be different, and that's true too. The timbre, this is Destiny going on, the timbre is still very different, and it won't make a baritone a tenor, but the notes can still be hit, I feel, sometimes and sometimes not. And you referenced my friend Mark Baxter there, was able to hit all the notes you hit in the video you made, but don't and I don't mean to argue. No, you're not arguing. We're not having an argument. We're having a discussion here, Destiny. Yeah, in that video where Mark and I did that. Now, interestingly, Mark would, I think if we were to get really pernickety, we would refer to Mark as a baritone. You're really a lot of modern a lot of singers that we hear these days are actually what we'd refer to as baritones. So they have some height of a tenor, but really they have the resonant tone of a baritone. And I must admit, I wish I was a baritone. I wish I had more fatness in my vocal tract and you know, that I could get more baritone color. But I'm anatomically a tenor. I'll never be a baritone. And so Mark and I, because that particular video you're referencing, Destiny, was an interesting one. It's had well over 1 million views, and quite a successful video, but it's also been hotly debated. If you read any of the comments, there is a lot of debate going on. People, you know, accusing Mark and I of being disingenuous, that Mark is actually a tenor. Mark is not a tenor. I'm a tenor. Have a listen to the timbre of my spoken voice. This, my friends, is a tenor. Mark is able to sing, and in part because of his technique. Mark is able to sing quite high, but he first of all, he nominates as a baritone, and I think if we were to be pernickety, baritone. Great discussion, Destiny, and I hope my comments help to clarify my position on that. And never feel nervous to disagree with me. I would like to think that I am secure enough, and my ego is in check enough to be questioned, and that's how I learn too. Don't forget, I'm here to learn as much as you are, and I'm not averse to being challenged on my thoughts. And over the years, that's exactly what has happened, and I've had to go away and reflect, and there has been the occasion where I've gone, do you know what, I'm wrong there. And let's add to that, we continue to learn more about the voice as time evolves. And so what is the generally accepted consensus on certain issues can change. There are certain things that are starting to really bed down, but nonetheless, things do change as we get greater understandings. Okay, we're going to do one more question because that was good. I enjoyed that interaction, Destiny. Sharon, another regular in the show here. Sharon says, I find my comfort level is using my lower register, for example, alto and tenor. I can sing soprano and in higher tones, though I don't do so often. So it is a matter of if you don't use it, you lose it. Actually, there is some truth to that. But Sharon, I would add, there is a case to be said that the more you use it, the more you lose it. If you are singing outside of the appropriate limits of your voice, if you're really, and this is where I have to work with singers on a regular basis who have spent way too much time requiring things of their voice that the voice is anatomically, biologically, and chronologically not really up to doing. And so what we observe at times in singers in their 20s are doing things with their voice that by the time they're getting to their late 30s and early 40s, the voice is going, I can't keep doing this. you are extending me beyond what is sustainable over the long term. You go, well, 20s, that's long term. No, long term is singing into your 70s. And so I think that's something to be mindful of, is that if you continue to do certain things, if you continue to use it and do it, that's actually when you can lose it. And so that's just a small refinement that I'd add to the general truth that you're expressing there, Sharon. One more question, and then we're going to have to put the others across into. We'll try to get to them next week. Victoria has just asked, are the Bee Gees tenor? The Bee Gees are employing, and I must admit, I've never taken the time to look at their specific biological voice types, but what they are doing is they are employing twang with a certain level of nasality, twang and nasality being two different things, to the falsetto range. And so it gives the impression of full voice, but it's a very, I mean, we all know that very iconic BG sound, and it gives a very specific timbre, very specific effect on the voice. And so it's yeah, that's a very particular application of voicing. Again, if I was, and I'm just, this is me, you know, sort of accessing the archives of my inner ear, I wouldn't be surprised to learn that the Bee Gees were tenors, if not baritones, but they could be baritones doing the very thing I've just expressed. A lot of falsetto with a lot of twang. On that, wow, what an interesting Q&A we've had today, and it's in big thanks to Destiny, who had the strength of backbone to put a challenge out there and let us know where they sit on a particular issue. And I really appreciate you doing that, Destiny, with no word of guile. I really did. Thank you for providing that opportunity for that discussion. I hope you've enjoyed today's live hangout. Please hit the thumbs up button if you do or have or did or you know what I mean. Next week we're going to do a mini topic. We're going to talk about the business of singing for a short period of time, and then we'll do some more Q&A. And I apologize to Flink Codum and Ultra Blast, who I haven't got to your questions today for time. But I've now got to go and do the very thing I was telling you that I do more of. I've got to go and teach. I always fit these live shows into the middle of my Monday teaching day, so which I love doing and spending and hanging out with you all. And I look forward to seeing you all again next week when we'll hang out again. And yeah, have a great week. I hope you're all safe and healthy and in good voice and all of that. I'll see you again soon. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.